Welcome back to another episode of ValueBytes. We're excited to be live today with David Trent. David is the founder and CEO of Trent Premier Growth. He's one of the busiest guys that I know. And so, David, let's kick things off with just telling us a little bit about you, who it is that you serve, and what all you're up to.
So I'm 61. I exited a 27-year wealth management career last year. I founded a company when I was 33. So on September 30, I fully exited a company, had a couple of partners that I merged with at the beginning of 21. I've owned a couple of smaller businesses along the way, but that was far and away my biggest, and had a fantastic run. And one of the things I love and loved being an entrepreneur, and I loved working with entrepreneurs. And so I had a pretty solid plan. After I exited, I financially don't need to work, but I love coaching, consulting, mentoring. And so decided to become officially certified in exit planning. I worked some in that space with entrepreneurs and wealth management. Also got certified in the operating system world, EOS and Pinnacle Business Guides are probably the organizations that people are familiar with. Also have a company, I've got multiple companies. I have a company that's called Absolute Capital that my son and I are working in the franchise space right now. We're going to open our first franchise, a concept called Laundro Lab in Grand Prairie outside of Dallas. And so excited about that. I'm partners in an M&A firm with have two partners in Dallas, so it can represent companies, lower middle market, and selling their companies. The big thing I'm excited about, and what we're going to talk about today, and my primary focus is CEO peer advisory councils. And I'm forming, as of now, 2 groups in Dallas and 2 in Little Rock, which will contain 12 CEO owners in each of those 4 groups.
You know, my washing machine broke down for a couple of weeks. And while we were trying to figure out if we could fix it, if we had to replace it, I was really wishing that you had those laundromats open in my area, because, man, that was an experience I haven't had since college, having to haul all the laundry in and get it washed.
Yeah.
It's exciting to
have
so much
I'm
on
amazed.
the horizon.
Yeah. There's a lot of laundromats out there. I didn't realize that there are that many until we got into space. So.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's not talk about laundry. Let's circle back to LX Council and the peer advisory groups. I'm really excited about this. We've talked about the opportunities for the entrepreneurs in our area and the CEOs that need this support. And so, one thing that I know about you just from the time we've worked together is that you are someone who very much values collaboration, connecting with other people. I know that's a core value for you. And so tell me a little bit about what drives that. Why do you feel like having those groups where people can collaborate and be with their peers and have those connections, what makes that so important to you?
I have, from a young age, when I got into entrepreneurship in my 20s, I started consuming a lot of personal development. And there's several kind of foundational phrases that have stuck with me. But one of them is, I think it's from Charlie Tremendous Jones. And he says, 5 years from today, you'll be the same person you are today, except for 2 things: the people you meet and the books that you read. And you could probably further kind of clarify that to say the relationships you develop and what you read and learn. But learning from others has always been a foundation for me. And then what I discovered once I started mentoring and teaching is you can learn as much or more. And I'll drop another foundational phrase: you learn best what you teach most. And so it's kind of a self-interest thing in a good way, right? You're teaching and helping someone. So in the wealth management space, that came naturally. I worked with a lot of entrepreneurs. I loved doing that. And so to answer your question, it really is, I just get so much gratification and joy out of it. And so much so that I'm writing a book, or I've written a book that's pretty much done. It's going to be published November 12th, and it's titled Elevate Others, Lessons for Purpose-Driven Entrepreneurs. So I've talked about my journey and a lot of stories in that book. So,
Yeah, I can't wait for that book to be ready for us to read. It's going to be an amazing one. And, you needed one more thing to do. So I'm
That's
glad that
right.
you found a way to fill some time by writing a book because you didn't have enough going on already. All right. So, why LX Council? What drew you to the concept that they have versus some of the other peer groups that are out there?
So, get a little background for me, how I came to LX Council. Great question. So, in 2017, I was a member of Vistage for 8 months, and I would imagine listeners are some are familiar with Vistage. It's fairly well known among entrepreneurs. It's an all-day meeting. There's typically anywhere from 10 to 16 CEO owners in the room. And I did it for 8 months, and I liked the business owners in the room. A couple of things that weren't great for me. I didn't like the all-day meeting. I thought there was some inefficiency in it. I'm saying this. Let me step back and say Vistage is a great organization, and I have friends that have been in it for years and years. And I know people that chair those groups that do a fantastic job. So, but for me, it wasn't a great fit. And having said that, late last year, I looked into being a chair for Vistage. I looked into C12. I looked into Convene. There's several organizations, and really was excited about it, but I couldn't. None of those really fit with me for various reasons. In becoming a chair, they're all franchise concepts, which again is fine. I didn't really like the revenue share model, that kind of thing, and I'm getting off on a little bit of a bunny trail here, so I'll bring it back. So I'd pretty much given up. And late November, I was at Exit Planning Institute, the conference for certified exit planning advisors in South Florida late last year. And I met Tina Corner Stoltz. And Tina told me what she did. And I was so fascinated. So she's been in the peer advisory council space for 20 years. She formed LX Council in 2013. LX is the two letters LX, and it stands for Leadership Exchange. And so it's interesting. What resonated with me is she saw some of the same things in the peer advisory council group space that I saw. And so she has this fantastic model for me and for people that I'm recruiting to become members of my councils. It's a 4-hour monthly meeting versus an all-day meeting. She has a strategic partner concept, which I think is wonderful. So you recruit a strategic partner. More often than not, that is a community bank, but not always. Actually, 2 of my 4 first strategic partners are not community banks, which I can talk more about in a moment. But I just love the structure of it. It's for the same type of CEO, and I can talk more about kind of what's a good fit for these groups. But that's what led me into the space. And I feel so blessed that I had all but given up on it, because I didn't want to try to reinvent the wheel and create something from scratch on my own. I might have ended up doing that, but I love everything about Tina's model. So
Yeah, after talking with her, it's definitely it seems like the best fit for everyone. Like you mentioned, the Vistage meetings and some of those others. It's an all-day event, which is really hard for a lot of business owners to do. And you got that Parkinson's law. Things are going to expand to fit the
yep,
time you give them. And
yep,
so you can definitely make a full day feel productive, whether it's
yeah.
all productive or not.
That's a great point on the Parkinson's law for sure.
Yeah, I know I experience that with my own life all the time.
Yeah, yeah.
So, what are some things that people can expect if they're joining a peer advisory council through LX Council? What are some
So there's
of
a
the highlights that they can look forward to?
Yeah, so there's a pretty robust onboarding process, and I don't mean like that to say to overwhelm someone. I just mean there's a lot of that's included just getting onboarded. So I'll provide a few kind of tenets of that. So the first thing I'll do is really sit down with the owner, and what I'm going to do is make sure that they're a good fit from the group. And there's a couple of primary things there. I want to make sure they're going to really benefit from being in this room with the other CEO owners. But at the same time, I really want them to be able to contribute, because you don't want a member in there that ends up being just a mentor. I mean, would be great if they wanted to do that, but that's not what this is about. Where they're so far above everybody else, they're really only contributing to the group and not getting value from it themselves. And again, they would probably get value just from teaching these concepts, but you want it to be a real collaboration and people being vulnerable and talking and sharing best practices. And I love the phrase, don't reinvent the wheel. So maybe you get in there and you're struggling with something and you find out, man, you're doing something that I think would really work in my business. And so that is part of the onboarding process. In addition, I personally, myself, I weave in an exit planning component. Not that my owners are all going to be ready to sell, but exit planning is something that needs to be done even if you're thinking of selling 15 years from now. So
Mm-hmm.
I'll sit down with the owner. We'll go through some basic exercises. I would call it a kind of a skinny down exit planning study that I'll do with them, and come up with an actual valuation, what we think is a valuation of their business, and compare that to what would be best in class in their space. And so we can start, through the group and other things, have conversations about that. We do offer, the way I'm going to do if members of the group want coaching, again, I'm going off on a little bit of tangent here, but they want coaching, some of that I'll be able to do myself. But where I can't, I've got a whole stable of people that I know that are great coaches in all aspects of entrepreneurship and business. And so I envision probably more often than not utilizing those resources to connect my peer advisory council members to those people. So, we do a quarterly I will personally do a quarterly achievement session with each business owner. And then once a year, and I go ahead and get the owner ready for this even at the beginning, each owner will do a perspective report, which is they present their business and strategy to the entire group once every 12 months and really get the group to focus in on their business. You're going to have that anyway every meeting. We allow the majority of the meeting, probably roughly 2 hours, to go through challenges, opportunities, problems, and ideas. So that answer your question?
Yeah, no, I think that's great information. One thing that really stood out to me that I thought was attractive was that, you're not using the format of the first half of the day as someone coming in and giving a presentation, right? You're
Right.
not spending that time every month getting some sort of education, which I have no doubt that the organizations that do that bring in fantastic speakers and have vetted them, but being able to individually send the owners out to the coaches and consultants and the people that are going to help them with the actual problems that are most important to them
Yeah.
is so much more effective than how often have we gone and sat through some sort of educational thing. And maybe it's something that's really not on our radar. It's something we really shouldn't even be thinking about. But now all of a sudden we're inspired to go out and take on this new thing that
Yeah.
doesn't
Well,
even apply to what we're really supposed to be focusing on.
right.
And it's easy to get that shiny object syndrome sometimes when you've got a constant stream of new thoughts and education and ideas coming
Yeah,
in.
that was one of the frustrations with Vistage that I was in. There were a lot of effective tools. It just didn't seem like they were they kind of came at random. And the other thing with speakers, I think of the 8 meetings I was in, maybe 1 or 2 really fit and resonated with me. And so with LX Council, we'll only have speakers. There'll be two different things. We'll only have an outside speaker come in if the entire group says, man, we want to have somebody come in and talk to us about this.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll do that. And that'll probably be at 30 minutes to maybe 45. The only other presentation speaker would be the strategic partner. We'll 4 times a year, so 4 of the 12 yearly meetings, will come in and present something for 30 minutes just on this community bank, just probably one aspect of the bank, each of those 4 meetings. And so it's really about the collaborative kind of vulnerability, helping each other work on their businesses once a month for that 4 hours.
So you mentioned, wanting to really have the groups be true peers and kind of all in a similar place with their business and the experiences they have and the problems that they're facing. And so what is kind of that ideal picture of a participant in one of the councils that you're starting?
So I would say minimum 3 years in business, with an exception. If it's an owner CEO that is, started, built, and sold 2 companies and starting a third one, we're going to make an exception on that one, right? And so, but 3 years in business, I would say 11 plus employees, and then probably 3 to 5 million plus in revenue. All of those are subject to evaluation. You may have somebody that doesn't hit the employee count necessarily, or maybe the revenue count, but is super sophisticated and can really contribute to the group. That's where, because of my career in wealth management and the mentoring I've done, formal and informal, I have a pretty cool discovery process that I go through before someone gets into a group. So I'm not trying just to the first, we limit it to 12 CEOs per group. It's not like the first 12 to sign up, we're going to sign up. I really ask probing questions to make sure it's going to be a great fit for both sides, for the group and for the potential member.
What are some of the mindset things that you're looking for in a member?
It may seem obvious, but eagerness to learn, willing to teach, mentor, just open-minded to new ideas, just dependable in terms of making sure you're able to make it to meetings. I would say you really need minimum 75% attendance, which would be 8 out of 12 meetings, but better if you could make 10 to 12, hopefully all of those meetings, because it's so critical to have everybody there. And just business acumen, looking at experience and where they are. That's where, a minimum 3 years in business. But there are people that, the group I'm forming in Little Rock, I've got a young man who's just started his company in February, but he's in the recruiting space and was essentially running his own practice for the last 12 years. And he was an entrepreneur, albeit getting a W-2 paycheck, but he had definitely built out his own practice. So it's really just kind of looking at things and making that decision on, can this person really contribute to the group?
That's awesome. And what are you most excited about with getting these groups started? I know there's a lot of opportunity and potential to bring some cool people together. What gets you the most excited?
Just light bulb moments and people, because of the group, making really impactful changes in their business. And it may be that they becoming a better leader, which trickles down to all of their people. From a standpoint of, I love the free enterprise system. And when you own a business, your objective should be for that business to have the maximum enterprise value that it can. And so getting with the owner, day one, and coming up with, hey, if you went to market today, and not saying you're ready to go to market, your business is worth, I'm going to throw a number out, $5 million. And we do some analysis and say, if you were best in class in your space, and not being condescending at all, but there's some things you could do. This could be a $10 million business. So you've got a value gap there of $5 million. And you can, I would say, a little bit of art and science on it, but you can then, over time, you can evaluate the impact of the group that it's had for you, changes you've made in your company because of things you've learned in your peer advisory council. And maybe 2 years later, we look at that valuation. Now you're a $7 million company, and you've been in a peer group that's costing you roughly $10,000 a year. Would you invest $20,000 for a $2 million increase in your enterprise value, right? And so I love the fact that you can actually make this a measurable. And that's why I say it's a little bit of art and science, but you can attribute changes to saying that because of this, it could be as simple as you've made your business less dependent on you. And because of that, you've increased your enterprise value. Maybe you had a customer concentration issue that you've taken care of and had some help from the group on that, and that increases your enterprise value. So
yeah, that's exciting to think about, even just in one group, if you're able to help influence that kind of growth. I mean, think about
right.
just in that, you talked about one of the smaller towns that you're looking at starting a group in, and that's a big difference just to the economy of that area by being able to make this
Heather,
increase.
you bring up a great point. I hadn't thought about it like that.
Yeah. And,
If you've got,
it increases the potential for employment, and people can be paid better. And it's like, not only are you impacting these individual owners, but there's that trickle out effect of like, now you've got whole communities that are being impacted by these 12 owners that are really doing things better in their business.
You're getting me more fired up now. So I
Now
really,
you gotta
literally
go write a new book.
have not even thought about that, but it's so true and so cool. As a matter of fact, I was talking to what I hope is going to be an anchor member in this group in a smaller community, smaller town. It's not a small town, but a smaller town. And that's what he said, man, I'm so interested in this because it's in my city. And I said, dude, I'm awesome. And so, that kind of, it's interesting. I had that conversation with him today. So it's interesting that you brought that up.
Yeah. As someone who, our office is in a college town, it's like we talked about, it's not a little town, but there's not a lot here for people that are kind of above that startup, but not quite enterprise level yet. Right. There's not a lot of support and interaction and peer groups. And so being able to bring this into those areas, and, like y'all talked about yesterday with Tina, the way that you don't have to stick with one pricing model across the whole US, you can really make this work for those organizations that are in a different economic environment. I think it's just super exciting because now you've got not just the difference in how the material is presented and how the group is run, but now you've got a difference in accessibility, which is, just a huge issue that a lot of the groups that are a little more standardized can't access.
Yeah. And something I probably could have shared earlier. I'm going to be moderating these groups, and that's very important. Yes, I will have input, and there will be some natural kind of teaching and coaching from me that goes on in those meetings. But my purpose and goal and desire in those groups is more just to make sure I'm moderating what's happening in the group and just making sure we're getting maximum benefit for each member in the group. And really kind of facilitating the right dialogue and steering conversations and so forth. So.
Yeah. And, with your experience and all the things you've done, I think that is just such a great fit to have someone like you at the helm that's making sure that it's the right people in each group and that you're staying on track and everybody's really helping support each other. So what in your past have you experienced? I don't know if you've been in a similar group or just with your relationships with other owners and CEOs. Do you have an example of how this kind of collaboration has really impacted you and your businesses?
Yes, I early when I started my company, and I tell a story about this in my book. I call it "Don't reinvent the wheel." I didn't invent that phrase, but a lot of times what you're trying to accomplish, somebody else has done, and go find that person and learn from them, and then maybe execute everything you thought made sense from that and would fit into your plan. And so in starting my wealth management practice, I did that, and I continue to really rely on this guy. He was just a couple of years older than me, but he was probably 10 years ahead of me in terms of his wealth management practice and where he was. And so I looked at the way he ran his company, the way he was a leader. And so that's one example. The other example is from executing the entrepreneurial operating system in my business, EOS, started doing that in 2017 and talking to other owners and other wealth managers that were using that. It really wasn't that many in the wealth management space, but getting their feedbacks and what's this doing for you. And so I've always been really curious. And so that really helped me from just how I met with my team and got me to thinking about a big issue with me was owner dependence and observing other wealth managers and other business owners that had done a great job of just being super conscious of, man, is this something someone else can be doing? And I need to think about this almost in a chairman's role where I could step out of this business and it could run on its own. And man, if you can get your company to where you have to spend 10 hours a week in it or 5 hours a week, then to me, you've got an ultimate company. Yeah. And then you almost maybe don't want to sell it at that point because you're going to hit a lick, you're going to pay tax, and then that recurring revenue is gone. So
Yeah.
now you de-risk because if you own a company, it's like owning a single stock. If you've got 80% of which most business owners, that's 80 to 90% of their net worth. There is some risk there, right? But that's in a lot of cases has a handsome reward to it. So
yeah.
So a couple of examples.
That's awesome. Well, I think that it's very clear that the LX Council advisory groups are going to be an amazing opportunity for CEOs and owners to come together, to learn from one another and collaborate and just really push each other to do big, amazing things in their businesses and in their lives.
Yeah.
So if folks that are interested.
Go ahead. No, you go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say for people that are interested, maybe this sounds like something they need. What's that next step? What can they do to learn a little more, start getting involved?
So there's two things. We have Tina's LX Council is the only organization I've seen that does it this way. We have what's called a peer advisory council experience, PACE, a PACE meeting. And that is a little less than 2 hour meeting. It's 11:30 to 1:15. It's at the strategic partner at their location where that group will actually meet. And so this is a chance for CEO owners to come 11:30 to 1:15 to get a mock experience of what a 4 hour meeting would be like. We plan to have 20 to 25 CEOs in each of these PACE meetings. So we've got 2 in Dallas, one in late September, one in early October. The 2 strategic partners are Shane Spiller's EOS implementer practice. His office is in the Statler Hotel, downtown Dallas, and then Sunflower Bank, which is right in the middle of Dallas in Highland Park. So those are the 2 strategic partners, and we have 2 meetings there for the 2 groups we're launching in Dallas. And then in Little Rock, it's a Hatcher Agency and First Community Bank in Conway will be doing meetings in October there as well. And then my preference would be to do a quick Zoom call with someone that's interested, even before coming to the PACE meeting, so that I can make sure that it's going to be a fit for them. It's something that's worth their time. And so coming to the meeting alone, the PACE meeting, will be beneficial because you'll be in there, even if that's all you did. But that gives someone a way to come and check it out. And then if they're interested, then we could certainly do a discovery call and determine if it's a good mutual fit.
That's awesome. And we will drop, when we repost this video and when we update the live stream, we will post links to those PACE meetings so that folks that are interested can get in there. And then if they want to have that Zoom call with you ahead of time, I'm sure if they ping you on LinkedIn, you can get them a calendar link or something back to set that up.
For
All
sure.
right, David. Well, thanks so much for joining us today. This was exciting to do our first live Value Bite. So I appreciate you being our guinea pig. Any closing thoughts you'd like to leave us with?
Just grateful for you and eager to hear from interested folks out there. And it's Friday afternoon, so everyone have a great weekend.
Awesome. Thanks so much, David.